Bonjour.
Enchanté.
Bonjour.
Enchanté.
Bonjour.
Bonjour et bienvenue au club de comptabilité. Présenez-vous les instructions en français ou en anglais?
En anglais.
En anglais, parfait. Each team has 20 minutes to present the case to the judges. The time is indicated on the timer as a countdown. I will also indicate the time, reminding with poster. If you don't end your presentation after 20 minutes, it will be stopped to move on the period of questions. A period of questions of a maximum duration of 5 minutes is assigned to the jury at the end of the presentation. I would like to remind each witness that it's mandatory to ask at least one question during this period. Please note that you cannot reveal the name or source of your university, as you may be disqualified. I would like to ask the public to turn off the ring of their cell phone. I will now invite the judges to introduce themselves. Je vais maintenant laisser les juges se présenter et ensuite débuter votre présentation.
Hi, Laude Coulombe, CPA auditor at Dallas for Équipe.
Bonjour, Julien Mouget-Dumais, CPA CMA, analyste financier chez JDC2019.
Bonjour, Carexandre Vallière, CPA auditeur chez Deloitte.
Bonjour, Simon Poirier, CPA CA chez Industrielle Alliance.
Bonjour, Camille Proucornier, CPA chez Ubisoft Québec.
Hi, I'm Stéphane Chunchin. I'm a senior consultant in corporate finance at Équipe.
Hi, Samuel Saint-Cyr-Durand. I am the Director of Postgraduate Studies here at UQAR, and I also teach accounting.
Comme le disait le fameux Wayne Gretzky, vous allez manquer 100% des coups que vous ne prenez pas. Donc, on prend cette fameuse citation pour guider un peu aujourd'hui notre discussion. Bonjour à tous. Nous allons aujourd'hui vous présenter notre analyse des diverses questions que vous avez apportées à notre attention la dernière fois qu'on s'est rencontrés. Nous allons ensuite offrir des recommandations globales en tant qu'équipe afin de vraiment vous donner un meilleur plan d'affaires avec la belle franchise que vous avez acquérie récemment. Donc, premièrement, une félicitations à vous tous. Puis, moi-même, je suis Maxime. Je suis accompagnée aujourd'hui de Paulina et mes collègues de la firme Slapshot Consulting. Nous allons commencer aujourd'hui avec nos recommandations globales afin de vous donner une vue d'ensemble d'où on s'en va aujourd'hui. Celles-ci vont être supportées par une analyse de votre situation courante. Et finalement, nous allons poursuivre une analyse plus détaillée des questions particulières que vous nous avez posées. Nous allons aussi revoir les différentes transactions comptables avec lesquelles vous étiez peut-être un peu incertains, afin de vous offrir un peu de recommandations et de guide à ces fins-là. Finalement, nous allons vous offrir un plan d'implantation afin de voir comment vraiment ces recommandations-là vont vraiment venir en vie. Et finalement, nous allons conclure et répondre à vos questions. Donc, premièrement, nos recommandations sont les suivantes. Vous nous aviez posé si les concessions devraient être sous-traitées à un sous-traitant ou gérées par vous-même en tant qu'organisation. Et notre conclusion a vraiment été, après notre analyse, de gérer vous-même ces opérations pour le moment, mais qu'au plan long terme, ça serait possible d'offrir un service plus étendu par rapport à des sous-traitants, avoir un resto peut-être pour avant et après les jeux. Ensuite de ça, on a vraiment regardé aussi le contrôle interne que vous avez mis en place par rapport à une réaction à un événement qui était peut-être moins favorable pour vous. Puis on a donné des recommandations pour vraiment plus apporter la structure à votre organisme à ce niveau-là. Ensuite de ça, nous avons recommandé certains ajustements comptables par rapport aux transactions que vous aviez eues et comment vous les avez faites précédemment pour faire certain qu'ils sont conformes au nom comptable pour entreprise à capital fermé, qui est vraiment votre objectif. Finalement, nous avons recommandé d'obtenir un contrat avec un des 3 stores que vous aviez suggéré, soit Sean Green, et nous allons voir dans quelques moments pourquoi nous avons décidé ainsi. I'll jump into English to discuss the situational analysis now, not to catch you off guard, but we will just look at an overview of your current situation, how we kind of came about these recommendations. So first and foremost, we looked at the fact that the big event that just happened to you is that you've acquired a new franchise, which is a hockey team. It's something you don't have many previous experiences in, despite the fact that you have a very good general manager to help you in this sense. but it is leading you to many operational decisions that you may not have had to deal with in the past. Based on this, we want to make suggestions that will help you prosper and really do well in this new endeavor, meanwhile always staying in compliance with ASPE. So this is what we are aiming to do today, while also keeping in mind that you're trying to maximize your revenues and being profitable in this new opportunity. And so in order to get a bigger picture of how your operations are currently standing in this new industry, we looked at a SWOT analysis. So we first started with your strengths, which, as I mentioned, the general manager has many experiences in this field. He's previously managed 3 other teams in this league, so he does have some experience in this sense. And there's also the fact that you are financially well, so you are able to offer competitive salaries to some of your employees, which will attract very hardworking and happy employees. However, there are some weaknesses that we have to consider and maybe address in some form or fashion. So first of all, Mr. Gagnon, who is your new controller, has recently been hired, and despite he has many years of experience in accounting itself, with regards to a franchise and a hockey team, he's kind of a bit uncertain on a few facets, and we do want to address those today. The other thing, as I've mentioned, is that you had a very reactive implementation of internal controls based on previous unfortunate events, and so we want to make sure that these are complete and that they're not lacking in any sense to avoid this reproducing itself in the future. So on a more external environment outlook, we want to look at the opportunities that you face, as well as the threats that might come into play that you should be aware of to look out for. So first and foremost in the opportunities, there's the fact that you can offer concessions, and you should do so because this actually automatically increases your revenues when you have hockey games just like on top of the actual ticket sales. And also the fact that you're considering hiring a hockey player, I think that will attract a lot of people into your home games, knowing that this person is part of your team, and this will also increase your revenues as well. And finally, you're in the optimal location. The market in Quebec is very enthusiastic about hockey players and hockey playing, and in order to prosper in this type of franchise investment, I think this is a very good place to do so. As for the threats, there is the possibility that the star player that we've recommended does choose a different team to be employed by. And so this could be something that we should have to address soon and try to get him on board as soon as possible before someone else maybe offers him an equal value deal or something even maybe better. The other potential threat is the team performance. And so, as we know, hockey teams vary from year to year. Sometimes they do very well, very poorly, and that could actually impact ticket sales. So we have to find a way to really get the input and ambiance of the environment of the hockey games really in there. So always have the fans coming back and watching them despite their team performing well or poorly. And finally, there was mention that you had shortage of staff for certain areas. And so by offering a competitive salary, I think this will be in sorts mitigated, but you should always try to actively look for other potential employees to be part of your team and showcase the value of being part of your team as well. So I will now pass it on to Z to go over the financial forecast.
Thank you, Maxine. So as you have requested, we have a 5-year financial forecast of your earnings. However, this is the optimistic solution, as you guys said that for the 41 home games, the attendance will be maxed out. So as you can see, with all of the revenues, including ticket sales, food and alcohol, merchandise, and broadcast fees, as well as all of the costs associated to that, for the next 5 years, your gross profit will be very profitable for the next 5 years. And you can also see in the cost here that we have an additional annual salary of $300,000 a year, because as you will see a little later on, we did include the fact that there will be new managers that needs to be hired depending on the department. And since we are looking for a star player, we have also included the fact that we'll be able to secure that star player that will also be discussed a little later. And the revenues related to that star player is included, as well as the contract fee for that star player for the first 4 years. Also, there's another few considerations in terms of this financial forecast, such as there was no income tax considered here because we did not have enough information. As I mentioned, the additional managers were hired for around $300,000, as well as the star player was signed. The team standings that were provided are a little volatile since you have not performed yet in the season, so we can't really say if they will perform well or unwell. So after a few years, maybe you can revisit the standings and if there's going to be any changes to revenues or costs related to that. And finally, there's a lot of optimism that's given in these numbers, since we really think that starting from day one, all of the seats will be filled in Quebec City. Even though hasn't been many marketing for it, there hasn't been a league in Quebec City for the past. So therefore, that's why we have provided a break-even analysis of the next 5 years. As you can see, the break-even analysis says that the average attendance for the next 5 years will vary anywhere from around 9,000 people per game to down to 7,000 people per game, depending on the year. So we can see that since the stadium has a total capacity of around 18,000 people, that's around a little less than half. So still very plausible. So that's why we can say that you will still be profitable even though all the seats are not going to be filled. And it's important to mention that for this break-even analysis, since we're not going for the optimistic side of things, we have decided not to include a star player, since it's possible that another team might acquire them first. And I will pass it on to Helena now.
So as we mentioned earlier, we recommend that you hire Sean Green as your star player, and we have discussed the various factors that we took into this decision. So there are several advantages of hiring Sean Green. First of all, he's a very experienced hockey player. He's played 9 seasons with another NAHL team, so he is a well-known player and has previous experience. Furthermore, he's very engaged in the community. He's always helping people with disabilities, and he wants to continue being actively involved in the community. So I think that'd be very important for a new hockey team in Quebec City in order to go out into the community, meet people, encourage them to come to games, which will be very good for your image. Next, it's estimated that there's a 15% increase in ticket prices if you do hire Sean Green, so that will help with your revenues. And finally, he is the son of a former famous hockey player who was well known in Quebec City and was loved by all the fans. So by hiring his son, we believe he will be a very good image for the Quebec Arctic. Some disadvantages we did consider are the fact that he is 30 years old, and for a hockey player that is near the age of retirement, so he may not be on board for many years. The contract would only be for 4 seasons, so after 4 seasons you may have to reconsider perhaps hiring another hockey player. Additionally, he's from the United States, and some people may not like having an American represent a Quebec team, so that's something that we should consider. The other 2 athletes we did not believe were good fits for this team, mostly because Marc-Antoine, he is known to party, and he also is known to not be able to perform under high pressure and not be able to win championship games. So we believe that will not help you build your image. As you mentioned, that you would like your team to perform well and win championships so that people have the incentive to come back and watch your games. Finally, Vladimir, he's not very involved in the community. He's very shy and only shows up to games. I don't think that would help build attendance to your games. And furthermore, he is likely to leave mid-season to go play for his national team, so he may not be there for complete seasons. Next, we will discuss our recommendation to move forward with full management of the concession sales. So some qualitative factors we considered are the fact that if you manage your own concessions, you'll be providing fast food options, which caters to a variety of age groups, so both millennials and the baby boomers who like to enjoy a beer and a burger at a hockey game. Furthermore, the orders are prepared really fast with an average time of 5 minutes, so people could easily leave the game, get their food quick, and return to the game without really missing much of the action. Next, the average is about $6 per meal, so this is a very affordable concession price so that caters to all kinds of people, whether they're paying a lot for box office seats or just regular seats. I believe this will cater to a variety of audiences. And next, the concessions can be purchased before, during, and after games, so this will just increase the availability of the concessions to everyone attending the hockey games. Finally, there is unlimited seats because people can buy the food and take it back to their seat and continue watching the game, so they're not limited to a certain space to eat their food. And finally, the quality standards will be set by the chef, which you will need to hire within the next few months. So we calculated the net annual profits to be about $760,000, which, as you will see in a moment, is less than the other option, but we believe these quantitative factors show that this is the better option for this team. We also considered that by managing your own concession stands, you have options to implement several sustainability measures. So you can provide paper plates and paper straws, provide recycling stations or composting, which will just help the environment and improve your image by being a sustainable arena. So just to quickly go over why we didn't choose subcontracting. So first of all, food can only be served before or after games, and you're limited to only 200 seats. So that does not cater to the 18,000 people who would be attending your games. And furthermore, the price is about $37 per meal, which may be too high for certain people who it may be out of their budget. The several positive things are, however, that the food quality standards and safety standards would be in compliance with Quebec standards, as the chefs that are going to be providing the concessions have previous experience and are very well aware of all the food and quality standards that need to be met. Furthermore, there is a possible partnership with a well-known chef, so that would also perhaps increase your image and increase attendance to this restaurant. However, as I mentioned before, I believe that the first option of managing your concessions is the better alternative. So we calculated the net profits per season to be about $1.4 million, so it is higher than the first option. However, we believe that as a new company, you should start off by managing your own concessions, and in the future, perhaps considering expanding your services offered by implementing a restaurant bistro in the arena. So I will pass it back to Maxine now to discuss the internal controls.
Thanks, Claudia. So we rounded it over to about 4 different areas where your controls are maybe still quite lacking. So first and foremost, there's the fact that there's currently no HR manager. So the hiring process is quite undetailed and unstructured. And so this actually could go to the fact that with Mr. Gagnon always implementing all the information on the employees, he could actually even go so far as to create ghost employees, and this could actually lead to misappropriation of assets and loss of revenues, which would be very bad and could take a long time to notice if no one's really overseeing his work. And so what we recommend you do is to actually hire an HR employee who might actually also have the qualities and the qualifications to hire better employees, and more so seeing that you have a hard time having the employees that you need and there's a shortage of labor. This leads us directly to the lack of operational oversight. So as I mentioned, Mr. Gagnon does a lot around there. The Tom days are not there very often. And so with this, he does take on a lot of the responsibility. But however, this does have a downfall in the fact that his work is never really reviewed. And so some of his errors might not be caught on time. And also, this actually might just lead to things being overlooked or not being taken care of on a timely basis. So because of this, we suggest that the new general manager maybe be involved in that aspect as well, to review some of the work he's doing and approve some of the decisions that he's making, which he might need some feedback just to kind of build on that as well. The second is the fact that, of course, as I've mentioned, that he does a lot, the controller also lacks independence. He's recently been hired to be part of the board, and as we know, the board members should be independent of the management team in order to ensure that decisions are made in the best interest of both the shareholders and the company itself. And so here, because there's lack of oversight and governance, we suggest that a new board be elected that's really independent of the company, and at the same time, it would bring someone independent into the board of directors to give new ideas, new outlooks, and really make sure that everyone's best interest is kept at heart. Finally, there's the lack of segregation of duties, again, that shows up with the controller, the fact that he is both collecting cash from employees, depositing it, and then verifying the bank statements for it. So that's really showing how he's really doing most of everything regarding to revenues, and he should really be overseeing these tasks. And so we suggest hiring a director of finance. As you mentioned, that's where the extra salaries come in our financial projections, in order to really overlook these items and make sure that someone separate and independent is reviewing this work that's being done. So I will now go on to discussing the financial reporting issues that are one of our main last topics that we want to go over. So very briefly here, there is an issue with the revenue recognition for the season passes. As the services are rendered over time, these should also be recorded in revenue over time. And so as you've currently already recorded all of this in revenue, but it wasn't actually, the season hasn't begun, then it should be deferred. And the tax implication is that there is none, because what you've currently done is correct for tax purposes, and you would include it as it is an amount receivable or received at the end of the year. Then there's the franchise. There's the fact that you have included these costs as a prepaid expense, but in reality it's an intangible asset. It's non-monetary, non-physical, and you can identify it physically, and it will generate revenues that we can actually evaluate based on the revenues that we calculated. So here we would just reclassify it as an intangible asset from prepaid expenses, and the tax implication would be that you would include it as a class 14.1 asset at a CCA rate of 5%. I will now pass it over to you.
Next, there is an asset retirement obligation based on the decontamination costs that are to be recorded as a liability, because there is a present obligation that's related to this past event, and that there will be a future economic cash flows generated outflow because of this. And there is no tax implication except the fact that the resurfacers might need to be, for accounting purposes, revalued for depreciation, but this will not be impact any tax consequences. Next, there is a contingent gain that's related to the lawsuit of the decontamination costs, and contingent gains are not to be disclosed in financial statements, but only as a note. And finally, there's a non-monetary transaction related to the fair value of the asset given. So here is the transaction that's related to it, and the tax implication is that it will have to be repaid within the year. Donc, on va retourner en français ici. Voici nos recommandations encore pour la dernière fois. Et comme on disait, on a une implémentation à court terme et aussi à long terme qui sont reliées à ça. Et merci beaucoup de votre écoute.
Can you guys please go back to the implementation phase? So what would be your priorities in order, like short term to mid-term and long term?
So, je vais faire ça en français. D'abord, c'est juste de régler les problèmes comptables d'ajustement qu'on a vu par le passé. Et aussi, on va embaucher les directeurs de HR et les directeurs de finances, comme on a dit, pour pouvoir combler les problèmes de contrôle interne. Aussi, on va pouvoir signer un contrat avec Sean Green si c'est possible, parce qu'on ne veut pas perdre l'opportunité, justement. Et finalement, on va embaucher le chef et acheter l'équipement pour tout de suite avoir les revenus qui sont reliés aux concessions. Et à long terme, c'est de pouvoir aussi implémenter la sous-traitance pour le restaurant bistrot, justement parce qu'on va avoir de plus en plus de jeunes qui vont venir, et eux, c'est plus leur tendance reliée au restaurant bistrot, et on va pouvoir réévaluer les contrôles internes par la suite, une fois que l'environnement change et aussi les contrôles dans la compagnie changent.
La sous-traitance pour le restaurant bistrot, est-ce que ce ne serait pas une priorité à court terme? Est-ce que ce n'est pas quelque chose qu'on pourrait implanter tout de suite?
Comme on a dit, en regardant les deux, nous pensons que c'est vraiment plus important de le faire à l'interne en premier, parce que justement en ce moment les baby boomers sont encore présents, eux ils préfèrent encore le pizza, le popcorn, et dans quelques années avec moins en moins de baby boomers et de plus en plus de populations qui sont plus jeunes, la sous-traitance va vraiment venir pour le restaurant bistrot, et il y a aussi le problème de financement qu'on ne peut pas nécessairement faire les deux en même temps.
Parfait, merci.
Tu parles avec les concessions. Est-ce que vous avez pensé au problème de main-d'œuvre, un plan d'action si vous avez de la misère à recruter du monde, choses comme ça?
Can I answer any question?
Yeah.
So when we took into consideration our financial calculations, we actually did provide the higher salary at $24 per hour compared to the $17 per hour. So providing a competitive salary, I believe we will be able to attract employees that we need to run these concessions. Furthermore, there's only 5 concession stands in the arena with about 12 employees each. So you need only 60 employees to run these concessions. So I think that's very feasible for the company to obtain.
Thank you.
I'd like to know, did you calculate which star player is the more profitable for the team? Is there a star player which is more profitable than another?
Yeah, so we didn't necessarily do the profitability calculations, but we were given the contract prices per season. So the player with the highest fee would be Vladimir. However, as we mentioned, he may not be present all the time, and he's very shy and not very outgoing. So we believe that the value of that player wouldn't really bring any benefit to the company. And on the other hand, the cheapest contract would be with Macon Fun, I believe was his name. However, like I said, there may be problems with his image if he goes out partying and causes some trouble, and he's not very likely to bring success to the team. So that's why I believe, despite the fact that he is the cheapest player to acquire, he may not be the best for the company.
Thank you.
À propos de vos forecasts, j'aurais une question sur 2 angles, dans le fond. Si je regarde le break-even, je vois que le profit brut qui reste, il est vraiment minime. Fait que, qu'est-ce qui est sur quoi vous pourriez, c'est quoi nos marges de manœuvre pour réussir à peut-être améliorer le résultat, là, parce que je vois que c'est quand même assez faible. Il ne faut pas que les variables, je veux dire, si la tendance bouge un peu, je sens qu'on va peut-être tomber à perte là, dans certaines situations. Fait que c'est quoi un peu nos leviers possibles si jamais on ne réussit pas à s'entendre pour arriver avec une situation quand même favorable? Je vois qu'elle est favorable là, mais qu'elle semble fragile là, quand même d'un premier coup d'œil.
Mais justement, le break-even, on l'a calculé pour qu'il soit comme au zéro, juste une personne au-dessus de zéro, parce que justement, c'est le break-even. C'est avec ce montant qu'on a pu trouver le nombre de personnes à moyenne par jeu. Et puisque eux, ils ont beaucoup de prix, de coûts fixes et non variables, puisque les salaires le salaire, c'est le plus gros dépense, les salaires des joueurs, ils vont les payer même s'ils ne jouent pas, mais, même si on n'a pas de revenus. Donc, c'est vraiment avec le nombre de personnes qui viennent, avec l'attendance, qu'on va pouvoir jouer avec le revenu, jouer avec le profit. Donc, c'est avec le marketing, et pouvoir avoir plus de personnes qui voient qu'on a une nouvelle ligue au Québec, c'est fun, et qu'il y a plus de monde qui viennent et qu'on va pouvoir avoir plus de revenus.
And I think just to add to that, like if you did advertising and having sponsorship, like the boards always have ads and you can generate a lot of revenue like that, and it's something that will generate revenue regardless of the attendance to the games as well. So that's more of a durable or more sustainable revenue stream perhaps that we could look at.
Merci, c'est ce qui me